Hello everybody and welcome to the second episode in the series all about guitar. My name is Riff7 and this is a podcast on all areas of guitaring that just might take your playing to the next level. This episode looks at how to set up the guitar and then tune up the strings. Check that the nut holds the strings about 0.02 inches distance above the first fret. If this distance is much higher, use a capo behind the first fret for this test, because you're going to set the bow of the fretboard so that the distance between the strings and the frets is around 0.02 inch. You could look at videos online for tutorials on how to file the nut to correct levels if it's too high. Tune up all the strings to around the correct pitches. This puts tension on the neck, which may tend to bow it forwards. The amount of bowing in the neck might need to be adjusted by tightening or loosening the truss rod to get the fretboard evenly aligned with the strings and the frets being around 0.02 inches below them. To set up the neck to the correct bow, hold down the third string at the last fret. Now check the gap between this string and a fret halfway between the nut and the last fret. If the gap is below 0.02 inch or the string is rubbing against that fret, the fretboard is too flat or too bowed backwards. You will need to loosen the truss rod anti-clockwise at half-turn intervals until there is a round 0.02 inch gap at the midway fret. If the gap is larger than 0.02 inches, the fretboard is too bowed forward, so you will need to tighten the truss rod clockwise at half-turn intervals until there is around 0.02 inch gap at the midway fret. Episode 1 called Guitar Structure shows where you can access the nut and washer that tightens or loosens the truss rod, which in turn bows or straightens the fretboard. This nut is normally accessed inside the backplate at the back of the guitar body at the neck area, or at the front of the headstock at the top of the neck behind a plastic cover. Now the fretboard is lined up with the strings, the individual string heights need to be set by raising or lowering the bridge saddles with their screws until the gap between each string and the frets is around 0.02 inch. If no buzzing happens when pressing down any string at any fret position, the setting up of the fretboard and string height is complete. If buzzing happens when pressing down at many fret positions up to a particular fret, that particular fret may be too high. The buzzing will only happen pressing down strings at frets higher up the neck than this fret. This high fret needs to be filed down. If buzzing happens when pressing down strings at one fret position, that single fret may be too low, possibly from wear. A replacement is required for worn down frets. If buzzing is happening at many various fret positions on most strings, the fretboard may still be too flat, in which case loosen the truss rod anti-clockwise half a turn to bow the fretboard forward more and set all the strings back to 0.02 inch gap again. If the buzzing does not stop after one or two half turns of the truss rod, and you need a much bigger gap from the strings to the midway fret than 0.02 inch to avoid buzzing, the frets may be at various different heights, and a higher action or larger gap will be the only option. After setting the fretboard and string height as best as possible, each string needs to be intonated correctly. Each string is tuned to its relevant pitch or note without pressing any frets. Then each string is pressed at the octave fret double inlays, and the exact same pitch should occur. It's best to use an electronic meter for this test. If the tuning is not exactly the same at the 12th fret as the open string, the relevant saddle needs to be adjusted backwards or forwards. If the tuning at the 12th fret is higher than the open string, the screw at the back of the saddle needs to be turned anti-clockwise until the tuning at open string and 12th fret are the same. If the tuning at the 12th fret is lower than the open string, the screw at the back of the saddle needs to be turned clockwise until the tuning at the open string and 12th fret are the same. If all the strings have the same pitch at the 12th fret as they do when they are open strings, the setting up of the intonation is complete. Badly set up necks and intonation make chords go out of tune higher up the neck. But now your neck and strings are tuned so that chords played anywhere should be in tune. This, my friends, brings us to the end of part 2 of the All About Guitar video tutorial series. Tune into part 3 of this tutorial, where we will be looking in detail at guitar amplifiers and effects boxes. Thank you for watching, and remember, there's something we can all do to take our playing to the next level.